Tears welled in Grace's eyes. She felt seen in a way she hadn't for years, not as a struggling nurse, not as a single mother, but as a human being deserving of warmth and safety. In that small hotel room, a simple act of compassion bridged the gap between two very different lives, planting a seed of hope that neither would forget. He had money, power, and success, but not a single soul waiting for him at home. She had nothing but exhaustion, a crying baby, and the cold night air of a lonely bus stop. When their worlds collided that night, neither of their lives would ever be the same. Daniel, a young CEO in his mid-30s, sat slouched in the back seat of his sleek black car, the leather interior offering comfort but no warmth. The night outside was alive with neon signs and the steady blur of headlights, yet none of it reached him. To most, he had everything: power, wealth, respect. But to Daniel, the silence of his penthouse and the emptiness of his days weighed heavier than any deal he had ever closed. As the car slowed at a traffic light near a deserted bus stop, his eyes wandered. And then, he froze. Under the harsh glow of a flickering street lamp sat a woman, her shoulders hunched against the night's bitter cold. She wore faded hospital scrubs, their once bright color dulled from countless shifts. In her arms, a small baby was wrapped in a thin blanket, its tiny face red from the chill. The mother held the child close, rocking gently, as if her embrace alone could shield it from the cold. Her lips trembled, her body shivered, yet her gaze remained steady, tired, desperate, but unbroken. In that fleeting glance, Daniel saw something he hadn't expected, not just struggle, but a strength born from love. Daniel's hand tightened on the door handle. For a moment, he hesitated, the old instinct to stay detached pulling at him. CEOs weren't supposed to get involved in strangers' lives. But the sight of that woman, of the baby pressed desperately against her chest, was something his heart refused to ignore. He lowered the tinted window, letting in a rush of icy air. "Do you need help?" he asked, his voice gentler than he expected. The nurse stiffened at the sound, her weary eyes darting toward him. For a second, Daniel saw suspicion, fear, the kind only those who've been let down too many times carry. She pulled her baby tighter, as though shielding it from the world. I just need to get my baby home," she whispered, her voice raw from fatigue. Daniel studied her. She looked younger up close, but her eyes carried years of sacrifice. She wasn't asking for charity, only for a chance to keep moving forward. A silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the faint hum of the car engine. Then, with a quiet certainty he hadn't felt in years, Daniel leaned forward and said softly, "Come with me. I won't leave you here tonight." The car glided through the quiet city streets, headlights cutting through the night like narrow beams of hope. Inside, the warmth was almost suffocating compared to the chill outside, and for the first time that night, the baby quieted, nestling against Grace's chest. Daniel stole a glance at her, her face pale, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, yet framed by a quiet resilience he hadn't expected to see. "You're lucky," he said softly, "most people would have just driven by." Grace shook her head, a faint, tired smile tugging at her lips. "I'm used to being invisible," she admitted. "I work long shifts at the hospital. I barely sleep. And this little one, he's all I have." She tightened her grip around the baby, who stirred but didn't cry. Daniel listened, really listened, something rare in his life of boardrooms and deadlines. He imagined the nights she must have spent on hard benches, the early mornings rushing to the hospital, the bills piling up despite her relentless effort. In her quiet determination, he recognized a strength he'd never encountered in his world of wealth, a strength born not from power, but from love, endurance, and sacrifice. And in that shared silence, Daniel felt a connection that no deal, no contract, had ever given him. As the car pulled into the quiet, dimly lit neighborhood where Grace had expected to be dropped off, Daniel's chest tightened. The streets were worn, the buildings tired and crumbling, a stark contrast to his world of glass towers and polished floors. Grace glanced at him, expecting the ride to end, her hand instinctively tightening around her baby. But Daniel shook his head. Not tonight, he said firmly, yet gently. He turned the wheel and drove to a small, nearby hotel, one with warm lights glowing through the windows. He handed Grace a keycard, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Her eyes widened. I can't accept this, she whispered, guilt and embarrassment flickering across her face. Daniel met her gaze. You're not accepting charity, he said softly. You're allowing someone to care. Tonight, someone carries the weight so you can rest. For you and your baby, that's okay. Morning sunlight spilled through the hotel curtains, painting the room in soft gold. Grace stirred, gently adjusting the baby in her arms. For the first time in what felt like months, she felt safe, warm, and unhurried. On the small table by the window sat a neatly arranged breakfast and a folded note. Stay strong, for your baby. The world needs people like you. Daniel. Grace's hands trembled as she read the words. Tears slid quietly down her cheeks, not from weakness, but from relief and gratitude. That single night of unexpected kindness had given her something she hadn't realized she'd lost, hope. Hope that someone could see her struggle, acknowledge it, and respond with genuine compassion. Daniel, meanwhile, returned to his car, feeling a lightness he hadn't known in years. The loneliness that had shadowed his success seemed smaller, diminished by the simple act of helping someone in need. He realized that true wealth wasn't measured in numbers on a balance sheet, but in the lives we touch, the kindness we show, and the connections we nurture. Sometimes, the smallest words and actions, "Come with me," could change lives forever. And in their hearts, both Daniel and Grace carried the quiet knowledge that compassion, once given, has the power to transform everything.